Hello and welcome to this lesson. If you've ever wanted to dive into the world of 3D modeling, animation or game art, this is where it all begins. We're going to be using Blender, a free industry grade tool that's used in everything from indie games to blockbuster films. And by the end of this course, you won't just be learning Blender, you'll be creating props, building environments and showing off your own characters in custom scenes. In this first lesson, I'm going to walk you through Blender's interface, show you how to move around, and get you hands-on with your first 3D objects. You're not just watching, you're building from the start. So grab a coffee, open Blender, and let's get creating. You can see that I'm using Blender version 4.4, okay? And if you've just done the same as I've done and clicked away from your splash screen, or it's the first time that you are opening this, you might have noticed it was a little bit different to the one I just had up. That's because there are a few different options, and if you come up to edit, if you did click away, into preferences and come to key map, these are the options that it had, okay? And this is shown to you the first time you load Blender. I would leave this as it is. The only change that I've made is spacebar action, and I've set it to search. Okay, so if you want to follow along as easy as possible, change it to search, and then if you want to try anything else out here, try it once the course is done, just to enable you to follow along in the same manner that I am working. We're also going to go to input. Now, if you do not have a 3D button mouse, you can click this one, and then when you're working in the 3D viewport, if you hold down Alt and left mouse button, that will act as if you are pressing the middle mouse button. If you click emulate numpad, because you do not have a numpad, that will make 1 to 0 act as if they are a numpad, and they have their own unique shortcuts within Blender, which we'll be using quite often. So if you do not have a numpad, give the top one a click, and if you do not have a 3-button mouse, give the third one a click. Make sure you come down to the hamburger icon, press save, and you can also, if you want to, auto save preferences, which just means anything we do in here will change without us having to go down and save every time. So this is what Blender looks like every time you open a brand new unsaved project, okay? You have the camera, default cube, and a point light. And these are always in a default scene. You can change it, but I think it's nice. It's a little Blender thing, and you'll most of the time be using these as you model anyway. This window here in the center is the 3D viewport. This is our tool station. This is our workbench. This is where we do everything and bring our ideas to life. This window at the top right is our outliner or hierarchy, okay? This is where we collect all of our stuff in our scene, and we can put it into different collections, and we can organize our collections, and we'll get into parents and children and how they all matter later on in the course. This right here is the properties menu, and in the editor, just here in the 3D viewport, we can edit our mesh, we can edit our lighting, and in the properties, we can further enhance it and add different details, different colors and different strengths. Now, in the 3D viewport, this is our main scene, so let's have a little bit of a deep dive about how we specifically navigate this scene here. So to pan around, and I'm going to make this a bit easier, you can see there's a menu just open here on the left. This is our toolbar. I can hide that or bring it back into view by pressing T. And we've got another one over here, and you'll notice there's a little arrow. If I close the toolbar, where these little arrows are, you can click on that should your letter T not be working. There you go. And this is our transform panel or our sidebar. Toolbar, sidebar. I'm just going to put screencast keys on. You won't have that with your version of Blender unless you add it. This will just allow you to see what I'm pressing and clicking, make it a bit easier for you if you're watching back to try and remember what it was I was doing. Now with this toolbar, this is going to allow us to manipulate, move, do all sorts to our mesh. So let's have a look at that. If I just click on the cube for now, and I am holding that middle mouse button and just having a little bit of an orbit around it. If I press the shift button with the middle mouse button, I'll pan the view. And if I press control and the middle mouse button, I will zoom in and I will zoom out. Now Alt, middle mouse button, and then move your mouse will snap you to a view. So if you look up here, we've got the Z axis, the Y axis, and the X axis. Okay, you can see I can try and line that up, or I can click on the actual axis here itself. Sometimes you're in a view and you just want to snap to that front facing. You can just Alt middle mouse button and just snap around very quickly. It's very useful. So that's orbiting, zooming, panning, and snapping. Okay, they're your main movements, and obviously just you'll get used to this. Have a bit of a play around. It will all become very easy as you get used to it. Now, this toolbar, you've got the cursor in the middle. We'll go into that a little bit later. So we'll come down to where it says move with the cube enabled, and to do that I just left mouse button click on it. You can click on anything within your scene unless you turn it off. If I come to move, you'll see that we've got these axes and they've got arrows on them or a little square in between. If I press on the X axis arrow or the red one, and if you're ever unsure what the X, Y and Z axis is, you can have a look up here. Okay, if they haven't got a little dash next to them, or if they're brighter, they're the positives, and if they're like dimmer or duller, or they've got like a darker center circle, they're the negatives. Okay, and this will just allow us to move our mesh around the scene. Now with this button, if I click on the cube again, you'll see I am able to rotate. Now I missed the gimbal's lines, the blue one for the Z, Y green or red X. If I get it correct, you'll see it just rotates around that axis. Okay. If I click in the center space and then do it, you'll see it's kind of free where my mouse was. That can be quite good for animations if you want some a head to sort of follow you and you'll like the camera. That can be quite useful. Scaling, okay, same sort of process. You've got each different axes to play with and you can really scale it in different ways. And then you've got transform, and that's just a mixture of everything. We can move it, we can rotate it, and we can scale it. Okay, and if you're unsure what they are, just hold your mouse over and it will tell you. I just undid everything by pressing Ctrl Z. There we go, back to normal. This top one, by the way, is the select. You can hold your mouse and it's a different way to select things in your scenes. If I just zoom out, or I can press Shift and C, and then everything becomes in view. Up here is how do I select it? So I can box select. You can see I can multiple select objects. Circle select. It's a bit more of a paintbrush. There we go. You've got to find the origin of the, I don't use that one often, as you can tell. You've got to find the origin of the object and click on it. So if I click over here on that camera, nothing's working. And what's the origin? Well, the origin, if you look at the default cube in the center, I'm just going to turn this back. See that little orange dot in the middle? Now that's its origin. Everything that's worked out and computed about this cube to the computer is worked out from that point. So in the world, that is where the cube is. It doesn't matter that these extremities are all the way up here and down here, okay? To the computer, that's where it is. And its dimensions are 2 meters squared. That's important. We'll need to know a lot more about the origin later in the course. It'll become relevant when we're modeling around it, when we're applying modifiers, and when we're exporting our objects, characters, scenes, bits and bobs. Okay? So that's pretty much navigating around Blender. You've got your different motions just here. You have got an option up here as well if you want to click on this Cartesian coordinate, your axes up here, your gimbal up here. If you want to, you can hold your left mouse button, click on this hand, and it does this. That's like a pan. And then you've got the plus one here, and that's like your control zoom as well. That's useful if you've only got two button mouse. And then if you've got a camera in your scene, you can click on this camera icon and it will snap to the camera. If I just delete that camera, it won't work. And the last thing I think we should go over before we move on is the different modes, okay, when it comes to views. You've got your perspective and your orthographic. Now I'll go into adding mesh in the next lesson, but I'm just going to duplicate this cube and put it back here to show you what I mean. Now, we all know how perspective works, that the further something is away, the smaller it looks. And if I just position the cubes like that on the screen, if we just walked in and looked at this on the screen, to some people, even more so if I try and make that a little bit flatter, you know, they would just say that looks like a small cube on top of a big cube. Okay, but we know I've put it in a distance, and this is perspective that's doing that to us. And this is how our eyes work. But sometimes if you're doing something like an engineering model and you need a bracket making and you need to be very specific with your measurements, you might want to move into the technical viewing mode, also known as orthographic view. And you can either click on this grid icon here, or on your numpad, you can press 5. Okay, and that has put us into orthographic. If you don't know what view you're in, you can check up here in the left and it says user orthographic. Now, if I just do the same thing as before, you'll notice a little bit of handiness. I can pretty much line those two cubes up and you can see that they're the same size, even though we know that one's all the way back there. And this is useful for when you're modeling technically. You want to get all the details in and you want to say work on your characters in a very specific way. Very useful mode. That's it for navigating around Blender. I'm glad that you came to this lesson. That is essential. Without being able to navigate comfortably, you'll find it very hard to progress with sculpting, modeling, and doing all sorts in Blender. So well done for doing that lesson. It gets more interesting from here, I promise. In the next lesson, we deep dive into what is a mesh, what is the different modes, specifically object and edit mode, and we'll look at what makes up a mesh from vertices to edges to faces.